Hey everybody, today we are beginning a new mini unit on unicellular and multicellular organisms, basically all living organisms. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that we can see the PowerPoint that I have for you, and then we can continue. Alrighty, we're going to go from the very beginning. We are going to be talking about unicellular versus multicellular organisms. And you can see right here some pictures, and as you notice, they look very different. One is a very odd looking kind of organism that we don't normally see around. And of course, one is some kind of beetle. So our I can statements, I can explain the basic functions of a single-celled unicellular organism. Unicellular, one cell. I can explain how a single-celled unicellular organism can survive. I can explain why multicellular organisms have developed systems, and I can compare and contrast unicellular and multicellular organisms. It sounds a lot complicated, but it's not. We're going to actually be able to do this in 1 week. So here we are. Let's see, before living organisms vocabulary. Cells, the smallest part of a living organism. Building blocks, cells can carry out all processes necessary for life. So we're going to talk about a cell. Imagine all of us living organisms, including plants like trees I have on right here, okay? All of us are made up of teeny tiny little building blocks. Remember when we did molecules and we said molecules are out floating about? Well, cells are the smallest piece of all living organisms. So unicellular organisms are made up of only one cell. Think about Spanish. It says uno, right? Uno is one. So uni is going to be one. So these organisms are made up of one cell. And that one cell carries out all basic life processes. They can move, they can find food, they can grow, they can reproduce. And here are examples: bacteria, amoeba, euglena, paramecium. I know you don't hear those very often. And that's except for bacteria maybe, but that's because you can't see them. You have to look at them under a microscope because they're so teeny tiny. Multicellular organisms, it's a living thing made up of one or more cells. Cells have different jobs and have transport systems. So what happens with that is the cells specialize. These cells, for example, would be part of pumping the heart cells. There would be cells that create your muscles. There would be other cells that do other jobs. They digest food. Those are multicellular organisms. Then there's species, the smallest group into which an organism is classified. Transport, move from one place to another. So some of these cells actually transport things, or if you don't, like nutrients and oxygen and things like that, or if it's a unicellular organism, it's got to develop its own process within that one cell to transport stuff. Trait, a quality or characteristic of a living thing. Population, a group of organisms of the same kind that live in the same area. Community, the living parts of an ecosystem. Environment, all things that surround you every day. So this is our vocabulary for the week. Now, what I would like you to do with this vocabulary for the week is create a foldable. Now, a foldable is really easy when you have a notebook, like I have right here. I am going to take this notebook and I am going to create a foldable. Now, this is how I do it. What I want you to do is have two sheets open because we're going to need that many in order to be able to create all the foldable for all these words. Because this foldable is going to be due by tomorrow, all completely done. I want you to take the piece of paper and I want you to fold it over. Just fold it over in half like this. It's simple, easy to do, and it's not like flashcards that you're going to lose, okay? So you do one side this way, then you take the other side and you do the same thing. You fold it over like that. So now you got like two big doors. You see them? So now what I need 8 of these little doors and I only have 2. So I'm going to just eyeball it and see where's the halfway point. Let's say that's half. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And then I'm going to create doors. I'm going to basically create 4 doors. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect or beautiful or amazing or whatever. All I need are 4 doors. Some can be bigger, some can be smaller, because we're not looking for perfect right now, okay? So you can see right here how I created 4 doors on one side and 4 doors on the other by basically cutting into this door that I made to begin with. On the outside, I'm going to put the word. So I'm going to put cells, okay? So when I put the word cells on the outside, on the inside, I can draw something on the outside just to make sure that I understand what a cell is. I can draw something on the outside of my actual foldable. So let's say I create a cell, okay? So I know that the cell has little things in it. So the nucleus, all sorts of ribosomes. You don't need to know all that, but see how I create, what a beautiful picture. I'm such an artiste. Okay, so it's just to remind me of what a cell looks like. And any of these words, you can look them up. You know, you can Google them and kind of get an idea of a picture. On the inside, I want to write the definition. So I'm going to write the smallest part of a living organism, okay? Cells can carry out all processes necessary for life. And if I really want to do even better, I can use it in a sentence so I can remember it. Or anything that's going to get you to remember it, I would write it down right there. And then that would be 1 door for cells that you can practice that particular vocabulary. Now, why are we doing this? It's because at the end of the week, you're going to have a quiz with this vocabulary. It's not just going to be the definitions. You're going to have to apply the definitions, which is a little bit harder. So you're going to have to really understand these words, okay? So you need to practice them every day. By tomorrow, this is due. You're going to have to turn it in for a grade, okay? So that is a foldable, very simple, quick, and easy way to kind of have flashcards in your science journals so that they don't get lost all over the place. So what is an organism? Organ, organo. That's a Greek word. Ha! You knew I was going to say that. Organo. It's actually an organ is a part of us, living things. An organism is something that is living. Organism. So all of these things are living. A mushroom's an organism, a snail, a lovely, lovely spider, a tarantula, frogs. Now this is a cell. A cell has all these little parts. You do not have to learn the little parts of a cell yet. You will when you get to middle school. But all you have to know is that it's the building block. It's basically the smallest unit of life that's classified as a living thing. So that's 1 cell. Just like we had one molecule when we were talking about weather and heat transfer and all the other good things that we did. One cell is the smallest unit of a living thing. Do all living things have the same amount of cells? What do you think? No, absolutely not. Unicellular organism. Here's a unicellular organism. The body is made up of a single cell, one cell. A multicellular organism, the body is made up of numerous cells. So you can see the difference, right? Now here, it kind of gives you a chart to kind of understand this a little bit better. These are organisms, unicellular organism. This chart is great for drawing inside your notebooks because it kind of gives you a visual. You can see an organism that only has a single cell, and these are amoeba, bacteria, paramecium. Multicellular organism, an organism consisting of many cells like plants have and animals have. You know, we've been talking about plants and animals and decomposers and producers and consumers also in reading with ecosystems, so there should be nothing new. Now, there are also, though, tiny multicellular organisms that you cannot see, that you would have to see under the microscope. They're still multicellular. That means they have more than one cell. And mites are one of those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit this show so that I can actually show you. Let me stop sharing for a second. And I'm going to show you a video of a lovely organism called a face mite. Now, all of you have these. It is so much fun. You're gonna love this video. So let's see what goes on.
Hey, you've got something on your face. Well, more like living in your face. Can't see them? Here, we'll show you. Researchers just use a little glue. Don't try this at home. When that thin layer of skin comes off, it takes some tiny hair follicles, that barely visible peach fuzz with it. Those follicles that came out look like a miniature forest. And inside some of them, that's a face mite. Entomologist Michelle Troutwine at the California Academy of Sciences in San Francisco studies these long-term tenants of ours. They've got 8 little legs.
Yep.
Because they're actually arachnids, related to ticks.
Did you see it? That thing lives on your face.
And spiders. Yep, you almost certainly have dozens of these stowaways on you right now and don't even know it. Usually, your immune system keeps them in check. But in rare cases, a population boom causes a red rash. But don't freak out, seriously. They're actually not such bad house guests. You're not born with them. Face mites are passed down from parent to baby. They spend their days tucked right inside our hair follicles, next to the hair. All cozy. See that yellow stuff? It's sebum, that greasy oil your skin makes to protect itself from drying out. That's what face mites eat. When you're asleep, they climb out to the surface and mate before crawling back into your pores to lay their eggs. So that's fun. But if you're thinking about scrubbing them all off, forget it. You'll never get rid of all of them. And here's the weirdest part of all. Face mites don't have an anus. They just eat and eat, but never poop. They've made our vast landscape of skin into their own personal kingdom. Just think of them as a natural, maybe even healthy part of your skin ecosystem. Now that you know that, you never have to be lonely again.
Okay, and everybody's like, oh, grass. You know what though? What they do is they eat the oils. If you have too much oil on your skin, then you start breaking out, right? And you've got all these zits and everything everywhere. So they're actually performing a good function, right? There's a lot of bacteria on us and inside of us, and a lot of mites that we pick up and other things. So, and other little organisms. So we're going to be talking about that when we get into multicellular organisms and we do human body systems, which is coming up next. So let me share again, and we are going to go back into our PowerPoint. And we're going to start from the next slide right here. All organisms perform the following life functions. Growth, they have to be able to grow. Movement, they have to be able to move. Reproduction, make more of themselves. Respiration, breathing, they have to be able to breathe or have a gas exchange of some sort. Nutrition, finding food for energy or converting food, sunlight like plants do. Excretion, and getting rid of wastes in some form or fashion. So these are every single organism, even those teeny tiny unicellular one cell organisms have to perform these life functions. So again, this is great to write down in your notebook. Now here's a comparison, all right, just to kind of give you an idea. Unicellular organisms made of one cell can survive as a single cell. Each organism performs all life functions within it. They take in material directly from their surroundings, and materials move freely around the cell. Now here, multicellular organisms are made up of more than one cell. They cannot survive as a single cell. Each cell is specialized. They have a special job to perform life functions. And they have transport systems, see our word, transport, to move different materials throughout the body. Now both are made up of cells, and both perform all 6 life functions. They move, they grow, they excrete, they get nutrients, they exchange gas. A single cell in a unicellular organism carries out all the life processes. Here we have different cells. You see how different, they even look different depending on what job they're doing. That's a multicellular organism. You can see we are obviously multicellular organisms. In a unicellular organism, their exposure to environment, the cell is exposed to the external environment on all sides. Not us, only outer cells are specialized to face the environment. Inner cells are not, they do other things. Injury. An injury of the cells can cause death to the organism. If you're a unicellular organism and you just have one cell, it's easy to die. Multicellular organism, injury or death of some cells does not affect the organism, as the same can be replaced by a new one. Because what cells do in a multicellular organism and in a unicellular organism, they split into 2. So a unicellular organism will split into 2 unicellular organisms. A multicellular organism will have cells that split into 2 cells that are specialized to do something. They stick together. Size limitation. You're not going to see a unicellular organism unless you have a microscope. Now, a multicellular organism, most you can see, some you can't, just like the mites that I showed you on the video. Lifespan. See, the big problem with unicellular organisms that they don't live very long because they have to do all of the work and eventually it takes a toll. A multicellular organism lifespan is long due to the load of work is kind of shared by the different types of cells. So here we go. We have in a multicellular organism, we have a cell. We have this, all these cells, they multiply, they split, multiply, split, split, and then they form tissue. See how they're all together, they stick together? And all those tissues form your organs, like these are your lungs. And here's an organ system, the whole system that takes in oxygen and removes carbon dioxide, that whole system. And you are an organism, okay? So that from smallest to what they create at the end. Now I want you to take the following quiz on Kahoot because this kind of gives you, after you've really studied this PowerPoint and you've written your notes in your notebook, go ahead and take this Kahoot, unicellular versus multicellular. And that is it, my folks. So what we're going to do is we are going to finish off right here and we will continue tomorrow.